Hey y'all, long time no see. I know it's been a while. I've been reading. It's February, and you see Freedom Change. That's it. I think it says Freedom Change, Inspire, Resilience are my work shirt for Juneteenth. But this month is Black History Month, and I've really been struggling this month with my reading choices. So last month I read The Seven Daughters of Dupree, which was really good. That book centered around several generations of women from slavery on up, and it had a lot of, just a lot of racial tension and things like that in it. It also had the relationships between mothers and daughters. I think I mentioned that before in a blog about, the relationship between mothers and daughters, how we talk to each other, how we treat each other was very, I want to say, negative in that book. And I, as a Black person, I could relate to it because I feel that mothers, especially Black mothers, can be very hard on their daughters. And the reason I think that happens is because our daughters, the Black woman, carries so much weight in society. We're the lowest paid, and we know that most Black households are held by a Black woman, which means most of us are single mothers. And the Black men have a high incarceration rate. Not to say that we don't marry outside of our race, that's fine. And all of those things. So we know that our daughters are automatically born with disparities. That book was a lot to take in. Beautifully written. However, as we go into Black History Month, it's hard to read book after book after book of our tragedies. And not only are we reading it, but we're actually living in that time. A lot of the rights for women are being stripped. And whether you agree with that or not, it is affecting us. We have a very high unemployment rate, yet we're the most educated. So, needless to say, I did get a ARC. Let me pull it up, y'all. As you know, I'm a Kindle girly. I did get an ARC by one of my favorite writers of all time. I'm gonna tell you, she's one of my favorite. And I was so excited. When I got approved for the ARC, I got it through NetGalley. I was so excited. I was like, I cannot wait to read this. I cannot wait to, it's called Bad Seeds by Mary Monroe. Oh, let me see if I can take that. This woman is beautiful. Reminds me of my mother, my grandmother. But anyways, there she goes. And Lord have mercy. There she goes. Isn't she beautiful, y'all? So Mary Monroe is an awesome writer. I've been reading her for years, since probably I was a teenager. She's written so many books. But this book right here, I am on the first chapter. I was at work and I was reading it. And, well, I'm at work right now, but I was reading it and it almost made me cry. So I had to, definitely take a step back and say, hey, this is not the time to read this, because I just can't take any more that's going on. Okay? The things that are happening in that book, which it does take place, it starts, I think, in the 20s, 1920. The things that are happening in that book, y'all, are things that are still occurring today. That is a problem. And I think of all the strides that the ancestors have made, black, white, whatever, because black people were not the only people who fought for civil rights, um, that have made to make us where we are today. And it's slowly being stripped away. And it almost feels as if, and I know we have all of our day to day lives, our finances, our children, our everything, but it almost feels like it's not important to people, or that it's not a priority. Um, People's focus is on so many other things that is not on these issues. But I had to take a mental break. And you know how they say books have, one of the bloggers I watch, she said that she doesn't really give trigger warnings because a book is a book, but I do, because if a book has sensitive topics that maybe you just can't read right now, and I'm a mood reader, so if a book has sensitive topics, I don't want somebody to go into it when they're dealing with their tragedy. So if it's a mystery, but then it has domestic violence or anything like that, I don't want them to go into that. But sometimes books are for a time and a place, so I made that decision. Another book that is an art, and I do plan on reviewing these books, and I may get to these books later in the month. But another book that is an art that I was so excited to get, and it came out I think it comes out this month, or it came out this month, is Women of a Promiscuous Nature by Donna Everett. I started reading this first. I'm a few chapters into this book, and I had to soften enough it. I'm going to come back to it because it is very well written and it's very good. In this book, it follows several women, and I'm going to have to look this up to see if this is true. Several women in the United States who, during the 1930s, 20s, and 30s, and 40s, if you were a single woman and you were living alone, if you were a woman and you were sexually active, if you were anything where the town or city that you lived in could declare you as promiscuous, or somebody thought or saw or anything like that, they could then take you and put you in basically a workhouse. You're stripped of your rights. There could be nothing wrong with you. They could force you to physical exams. They could say you have diseases that you don't have. I don't know if they were getting paid by the government to keep these women in these places, but this is very disturbing. So I need to do more research on that. I know that has happened in other countries like Ireland and England, but I didn't know if that had happened in the United States. But this book takes place in the United States, and that was very alarming to me. Also, with everything going on in the world and here, that's very disturbing. And I don't know if you guys heard about and I try to make my channel not political, but rights are important. Have you guys heard about the nurses, where nurses not going to be considered an actual, and I need to do more research on that as well, but not a real, considered a job, or a real career or whatever. What? Let me tell you this. When I had my son, I went into labor at, well, when I got to the hospital, it was like 11 o'clock at night. I had my son at 7:41 in the morning. Okay. I had my son with no epidural. I had a nurse. I would, let me tell you, it was not a pleasant experience. However, that nurse went above and beyond. I don't even remember the woman's name. The doctor, who was a male, came into the room when I was delivering. The last, I'm going to say 20 minutes, he advised the nurse that I was going to need some help. But my son had, because my son was ripping me. And the nurse cut. And then after that, she stitched me up. He did whatever he had to do with the baby. He asked the father, well, my husband at the time, he asked him if he wanted to cut the cord, which he chose not to because whatever. And then I did not see that man anymore. The nurse then went and pushed on my stomach to get, I guess, the placenta or whatever that situation was. Then the next morning, another nurse came in. Well, that night or whatever, it was the next morning. A nurse comes in, a different nurse that helped instruct me on how to care for my son, how to breastfeed. I was running a temperature. She gave me medication. And I don't know if any of you know this, but I have lupus and I take chemotherapy. And I see the nurse more than I see the doctor. The nurse gives me my chemotherapy. And these nurses, most of the nurses that I have had, and because I have a chronic illness, I have been in the hospital multiple times, and I have been in the hospital many times, and I have been, in doctor's offices. Most of the nurses are female. So, this Black History Month, I'm trying to get, because I got to go back into work. But this Black History Month, on a brighter note, on a very good note, I am so grateful for all of the ancestors. I'm grateful to be able to read and write. I am grateful to all of the teachers, to every nurse, for all of the sacrifices that these people have made to make it possible for me to be able to walk down the street, to go to the store, to go to school, college, to have my career. Thank you. Thank you for all that you've done. And I will continue to pass it on to my children. And hopefully they will pass it on to their children. So on a lighter note, back to something bookish. I am reading, it's called Guild, but I'm on the second book. It's called Glint by Raven Kennedy. It is a fantasy. It involves fae and all the good things, because I just need to escape this world. And I'm thankful for books, because if one book does not, you can't deal with one book, there's so many more books that you can read. There's so many different things that you can look at, read. My husband has a ton of automobile magazines, and he looks at those. My daughter loves comics. There's so much that you can do and read. I will show you guys the cover of this one. And I'm really loving the Kindle Soft. But before, let's go to her. Hey. This is Glenn, the second book. Now, when this book first started, y'all, I was like, I don't know if this book is for me. Now, I can read some, how do you say this? PG. Some situations that are not something that I would be involved in. I read 50 Shades of Grey, so I read that. I'm not into multiples, if you can follow that. Um, but as the book went on, the book started with that. Okay, so I'm used to fantasy books starting with world building. The book started with that, but I was fresh off of the whole. So I'm like, maybe I just need a palate cleanser. I just need to clean my mind. I just need to have a moment of peace. So even though it started with that, oh, even though it started with that, I was like, okay, just give it some time. And it did. And it's starting to do world building. It's starting to do action. It's starting to do all of the things that, and I really like it. So far, so good. I'm in the second book. Um, it it involves 7 different kingdoms and a girl that has who's orphaned, and she has and we love our orphan story, who has and it sort of reminded me of a dragon or a she has ribbons in her back that developed in her back, or fairies. So that's what it reminded me of. She has all these ribbons that are attached to her spine. So I'm reading that, loving it so far. On the second book, you should check it out. And back to Black History before I finish this. My hair reminds me of Frederick Douglass. It also reminds me of The Teacher on Recess. We are at an awkward stage here, but it's amazing how you can look at people in history and be like, oh, that looks like my cousin, or oh, that. But yeah, I'm loving this. And so tomorrow is Valentine's Day, and I want to wish all of you a happy Valentine's Day. This is a really short vlog, but I look forward to you guys in the next one.